Let's talk about Brett. Brettanomyces. I've got Brett and beer on the next episode of Stay Rad Wine Blog TV. Hey everybody, it's Jeff. Welcome to another episode of Stay Rad Wine Blog TV. So yesterday was the 30-year anniversary of the famous or infamous pine tar incident in baseball. So it was 30 years ago from yesterday that a player for the Kansas City Royals, George Brett, hits a home run to try to win the game, and he ends up getting his home run called back because he had too much pine tar on his bat. So in honor of George Brett, I decided to talk about what could be considered a dirty word in the wine world, although some of those ideas are kind of changing a little bit, and it's been kind of picking up quite a bit of steam as far as positive aspects in terms of microbrewing. The dirty word or the controversial word is Brett, and Brett is the common name for a yeast in the genus Brettanomyces. This species that I'm going to be talking about today is Brettanomyces bruxellensis. I think I said that right. Bruxellensis? Yeah, Brettanomyces bruxellensis. This is a strain of the Brett yeast that was originally developed in Brussels, Belgium. That's why it's bruxellensis. And you actually find it in a lot of the traditional Belgian-style beers, especially when you talk about Lambecs, those fruit beers that have those sour notes. Those sour notes are coming from that Brett, that Brettanomyces that's in there. So, you know, as far as the dirty word, the reason why we say this is because when we find Brett, this natural yeast in wines, a lot of times we think of it as contributing to these very off flavors. Things like Band-Aids, things like, forest floor and wet cardboard, where at times, in little amounts, sometimes that Brett flavor is kind of good, but if there's too much of it, it can be overwhelming. Brettanomyces does a really good job of outcompeting native yeast in certain areas. So if you get Brett in your cellar, it will take over and it will knock out all the other yeasts and all the other microorganisms, and it can really contribute to these off flavors in all of your wines and sometimes in our beers as well. I've seen a lot of really great articles lately. Recently, I've been reading a lot from the One Wine dude, Joe Roberts, about his take on Brett and how it's been kind of changing a little bit. He talks a lot about how much he hates bready wines and about how much a lot of people kind of fall in love with those bready wines and how it's really a bad thing. We want to look for wines that kind of stand on their own. That being said, a lot of research has been going into some of the compounds that are produced from Brett that are actually very pleasurable, that people like in wines. If you like wines that have a meaty or smoky or gamey characteristics, if you like wines that have a little bit of spice to them, bacon flavors, a lot of those are coming from some of the compounds that are produced by Brett. So in some instances, it can be a really good thing. There are some wineries that under the table are kind of excited about some of the strains of Brett that in minimal amounts are making it into their wines and are contributing. Sometimes people would say they're contributing to the terroir or the specific flavors of that region. We're finding out are having a lot to do with the Brett that's making its way into the wines, and specifically we find a lot of it in these red wines that are being barrel aged. Now, what got me really excited about Brett recently is my buddy Dave the Vegetarian, and you guys have seen him on this show before. I'll link up a couple of those episodes down below. He's really into a lot of craft micro beers, and he over the last couple of months has really turned me on to the concept of sour beers that a lot of American and especially breweries in California are starting to get into this concept of sour beers. I went to a really nice beer bar in Walnut Creek, and forgive me, I forget the name, but maybe I'll link that up below after I look it up again. And they had a lot of sour beers on tap, and so I had an opportunity to taste a lot of those, and I really liked it. It was at this beer bar that I also learned that sour beers, a lot of them, they're becoming sour because these brewers are intentionally putting Brett into their beers. After the first fermentation, sometimes they'll give it an inoculation of that Brettanomyces that'll start to give them those secondary flavors, these sour type of earthy type of flavors that are contributing to those wines. So the other day when I was doing my shopping, because Kara's out of town, so I essentially just bought a bunch of beer and wine and junk food. I was looking for some sour beers, and this is what I came up across. I want to say this was $12 at Bevmo. It's a big beer right here, and you notice it's got a nice little cork on there with a cage, so we'll have fun opening this in a little bit. This is Brew, and Brew is a collaboration between the Russian River Brewing Company, who makes Pliny the Elder, which is a really popular one amongst folks who are really into microbrews, and also the collaboration is with Sierra Nevada. I don't know many folks who like beer who haven't had the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. It's one of my favorites and one of my just go-to beers whenever I'm at a bar and I'm not thinking about wine. So these guys got together and they made what they call Brew. It's kind of an homage when you see that UX at the end. It's kind of an homage to wine in the sense that they're saying this is a beer that is going to age well and it's going to change over time. The reason why this beer is changing over time is because in the bottle they inoculated it with this wild yeast. They call it the domestically wild ale here. They inoculated it with that Brettanomyces bruxellensis, right? So they intentionally put Brett into this beer. So right now we've got this yeast inside of this beer that is living and breathing. Well, I guess I can't really say breathing. They're going through fermentation. They're not getting any oxygen in, but they are breaking down these compounds and they're making carbon dioxide, they're making alcohol, and so that's why, in a sense, we've got this champagne type of cork, because it's the yeast that are still fermenting that put bubbles in that champagne. That's what's putting bubbles in this bottle right here. But yeah, they intentionally put that Brett inside of there to give it this different type of characteristic and to give this beer some ageability. So, I mean, if you guys see Brew in your local store, I found this at Bevmo, and again, I believe it was like $12, maybe $13. It might be one you want to check out. I'll taste it first and then we'll see. It's 8.3% alcohol, and it's 1 pint and 9.4 fluid ounces. Let's open this bad boy up. Safety first. I've got my hand over that cage, and my hand will not leave that cage until the cork is out. I'm going to twist that bottle and gently, if this splashes all over me, we got issues. Uh-oh. Oh, we're good. Nice little smoke there, and right away, honestly, it smells yeasty as soon as I pop that cork. So let's take a look. I actually stored this in my wine fridge overnight. It's a little bit colder than room temperature, but it's definitely warmer than what you would get straight out of the fridge. And this is one of the reasons why you don't want your beer too warm, because look at that. That's all head right there. That'll dissipate in a little bit. Let me add a little bit more of this beer. Let's get more liquid than we have foam. And what I'm seeing right now is, color-wise, it's this nice, like, caramel brown type of color. It's definitely unfiltered, as my buddy Dave would say. There's a lot of chunder that's inside of there. As I'm looking at the head, as I'm looking at the foam, these bubbles that are forming also around the edges, they have this yellowish, golden type of caramel color as well. So let's give a little sniff. And definitely there's these just yeasty, bready type of characteristics. Not bretty, bread-like characteristics. I'm getting a little bit of lemon on that nose. And I am getting a little bit of like a subtle grassiness as well. I'm getting some caramel. I'm getting some of that. And really what I would say is it's this really nice blend of just this yeasty breadiness and this lemon lime zest and a little bit of that caramel on top. Really nice nose. I'm getting a little bit of like a honeysuckle. There's like this floral note as well. Good stuff. And that's what I was looking for. So if you've never had a sour beer before, and I know that there are beers that are more sour than this, that'll say sour right on the label. That's not what it's saying on this. But definitely there's a really nice sour component that carries this wine from beginning to finish on the flavor profile of this wine right here. And we're going to say that those sour notes are definitely coming from that Brettanomyces, that Brett. Yeah, this sour lemon zest. Again, more of those like caramel, mocha, malty type of flavors. There's a dry, crisp type of finish to this, and really, it's just a nice, solid quality wine. And I mean, the whole purpose for this beer again is just to get us to think about Brett. And honestly, what I'm thinking now is, as I'm tasting these sour notes to this beer right here with that Brettanomyces inside of it, and as I'm getting these crisp notes, what I'm starting to think to myself is, why aren't there as many wineries that maybe are embracing the Brett movement? A lot of that Brett is naturally occurring just inside of the cellars that they have. And if you could cultivate some of those natural Brett yeasts that are giving good characteristics to your wine, I mean, you really could take advantage of that situation. Honestly, normally when we talk about Bretty wines, we talk about red wines that are being oak aged. But when I taste it in this beer, immediately my mind is starting to think about champagne. I'm starting to think about like crisp white wines. Like I'm thinking about Sauvignon Blanc. I'm thinking about Semillon. I'm thinking about Viognier, right? And what I'm thinking is, why not just add a little bit? If you could control it, why not add just a little bit of that Brett that's got the good stuff, that's making those compounds that are giving those sour notes and those yeasty notes and maybe even some of those grassy flavors, and some bacon? I mean, that'd be kind of nice, right? Why not kind of play a little bit with this? I mean, wineries, most of them are picking their yeasts anyways, so why not, they're usually using Saccharomyces, I believe. Why not, if you could get a good Brettanomyces strain that's giving you what you want, why not play around? Why not play around not just with different clones of grapes, but maybe different species of yeasts? And let's be a little bit more transparent about it. Let's put it right on the label. Let's not be afraid of Brett. Let's take Brett on. Let's challenge Brett to do what we want it to do, right? Let's domesticate it like these guys are doing. Why not? Why not? That's my question. Let me know down below. Everybody, stay rad. Stay rad. Stay rad. Stay rad. Stay rad.